Welcome to Back to the Text Themselves, a series on phenomenology. Today's video examines sections 67 and 68 of Heidegger's Being and Time. In the previous video, we saw how the threefold structure of care is grounded in the three ecstasies of temporality. Now Heidegger presents us with how our everydayness is grounded in time. An important aspect of our everydayness is how being, including our own being, is disclosed to us in an authentic and an inauthentic mode. The structures that form this disclosedness are understanding, attunement, entangled falling prey, and discourse, concepts that Heidegger has previously introduced us to. The aim of this video will be to discuss how these structures are each grounded in temporality. The inauthentic future has the character of awaiting. Heidegger reminds us that the primordial meaning of understanding entails a projecting toward one's own most non-relational potentiality of being, which provides Dasein the meaning of its existence. The knowledge gained from this understanding is not about facts, but a way of orienting oneself toward the possibilities of things at hand in view of our ultimate potentiality of being. The acquisition of facts is instead a derivative mode of understanding. As such, we can perhaps see why understanding is primarily grounded in the future. The future allows us to understand because understanding is always about grasping possibilities, and possibility itself is intrinsically futural. Anticipation is a manner by which we let ourselves come toward our own most potentiality of being. However, usually when we understand, we fail to take this authentic future into account. Instead, our understanding is fixated upon what we understand of our immediate surroundings, rather than come toward ourselves in our own most non-relational potentiality of being. We instead understand ourselves in terms of what we are taking care of. Awaiting is the name of this inauthentic orientation to the future. So, for example, when I was writing this part of the script for the video, I was sitting in my car in a parking lot as I waited for my daughter to finish a class she has on the weekends. My thoughts were in part focused on when she should finish, but also what I have to do once I get home, the chores I'll need to complete, etc. From this, it's clear I'm oriented to the future, but not one that concerns my ultimate purposes and possibilities. Instead, it's about the practical matters of my everyday life, which I relate to in a kind of awaiting for their completion, as opposed to the anticipation that's related to an authentic understanding. Though we still have to keep in mind that the inauthentic mode of understanding is always still derivative of the authentic mode and never completely independent from it. The forgetting constitutive for fear confuses Dasein and lets it stray back and forth between ungrasped worldly possibilities. Understanding is always an attuned understanding, and attunement consists of being in a particular mood. To be in a mood entails the way I find myself always already thrown into a world in a particular state of mind. The connection between attunement and thrownness means that attunement is grounded in the past as the having been. The having been is a term used to communicate a manner by which the past is not only past, but still with me in my present. So it's the nature of being in a mood to be grounded in this having been, which is disclosed to us in our attuned understanding. To make this clearer, Heidegger returns to his examples of anxiety and fear, which also allows us to consider the temporality of attunement in its authentic and inauthentic modes. As you might recall, if you watched the previous video on this, anxiety is an authentic mode of attunement. It confronts us with our thrownness and discloses the uncanniness of our everyday familiar being in the world. Anxiety is not about something in particular, something to be taken care of. Instead, it concerns how those things that we take care of no longer speak to us in the same way. They lose their relevance for us, and even the world itself falls into a kind of meaninglessness. Nothingness entails the encounter with interworldly beings that have lost their relevance. As Heidegger writes, they show themselves in their barren mercilessness. In anxiety, we're brought face to face with the sheer rawness of our individual thrownness. Yet, as we've learned, this anxiety leads us to the precipice of resolutely assuming our own potentiality of being. In bringing us back to our having been as thrownness, anxiety discloses the possibility of what Heidegger here calls repetition. Repetition concerns a return to our thrownness in such a way that I can be directed toward the future. It's a retrieval of the past and appropriating it for the sake of possibilities directed toward my potentiality of being. And if you're hearing a little bit of Kierkegaard here, I don't think that's completely a coincidence. Fear, by contrast, is an inauthentic mode of attunement. Like inauthentic understanding, it's a mood that's fixated upon innerworldly beings, in this case, what we fear, what we find threatening. So, how is fear related to time? First, fear is a kind of awaiting for the threatening thing that is feared. Second, fear entails a kind of forgetfulness of one's thrown factical potentiality of being. Instead, we remember ourselves as a threatened being taking care of things in the world. This forgetfulness leads to confusion as we become unable to take hold of any definite possibilities in our leaping from one thing to another in our attempt to escape what we fear. In this way, one forgetfully loses themselves in their fear. For a more concrete example, this makes me think of the time when I was working on my dissertation. My dissertation was very threatening to me, representing a doorway to the rest of my life that I feared would close tight before I was able to walk through it. And in my fear, I would seek to distract myself with anything I could. It's amazing how motivated one can feel for cleaning or doing the dishes or any number of other feats of avoidance when one is threatened by a dissertation that draws near. Curiosity is constituted by a dispersed making present. The third structure is our entangled falling prey, which consists of idle chatter, curiosity, and ambiguity. Heidegger focuses on curiosity in this section, which is a seeing for seeing's sake. It's a perceiving what is at hand in terms of its outward appearances. This makes curiosity grounded in the present, in its restless seeking to bring things into view. Yet it does not make present something in order to understand it, only to have it seen. It's an attempt to withdraw from awaiting, itself being an inauthentic mode of understanding, by turning what is awaited for into something real. However, in seeking to make something present without really caring for understanding it, we quickly move on to something else once we've had our glance. We modify our awaiting by making present simply for the sake of the modification itself, a making present for the sake of the present. Consequently, Dasein never lingers or dwells anywhere and instead is everywhere and nowhere at the same time. In an example I think I've used previously, we might say a lot of social media is designed specifically to entice this curiosity, to endlessly scroll videos, get a little dopamine fix, and then quickly move on to the next video or image that the algorithm is showing us. The making present in curiosity is contrasted with an authentic mode of relating to the present, which Heidegger calls the moment. The moment is a resolute engagement in which things are encountered and taken care of, not for the sake of themselves, but in view of one's own most non-relational potentiality of being. Put another way, it is the resolute bringing together of one's present situation with our primordial limit situation, that being our being toward death. Temporality temporalizes itself completely in every ecstasis. Our final structure is discourse. Heidegger spends much less time on this concept compared to the other three, perhaps because the other three are all pointing to discourse, which, as Heidegger states, articulates the complete disclosedness of the there. Discourse is constituted by understanding, attunement, and fallenness. Discourse itself is grounded in temporality and has a special relation to the present, since discourse as spoken language addresses the innerworldly beings of the surrounding world by talking about them, or in the case of other Daseins, talking to them. Now, more broadly, we should be cautious not to think of understanding attunement and entangled falling prey as only dealing with the future, past, and present, respectively. Although they have their meaning in view of one of these ecstasies of time, each ecstasy of time is always inseparable from the other two ecstasies. This is what Heidegger means when he says temporality temporalizes itself completely in every ecstasis. So, for example, repetition entails a retrieval of the past in view of the future done in the moment of the present. Forgetting is an awaiting, which has to do with the future, that loses the past in becoming confused in the present. The particular ecstasy of time connected to each structure is more of an entry point for leading us into the profound manner in which the totality of the being of Dasein, in all its modes and characteristics, is always already grounded in primordial temporality. If you found this video helpful and it's within your means, please consider making a super thank you tip. You can find the super thank you button below this video. If you wish to be an ongoing supporter of this channel, you can do so on Patreon, where I offer video transcripts and unedited materials. The link is below. I would like to thank the following for already supporting this channel on Patreon. You can also support this channel by liking and sharing this video and subscribing to my channel. As always, thank you for watching, and until next time, be well.